Tommy, pretty cool moment. You see Roxanne Perez face-to-face with her favorite pro wrestler of all time, CM Punk, but she went in a completely different direction, saying it should have been Drew McIntyre. I got to tell you, Tommy, when she said that, I laughed out loud just looking at CM Punk's face when she said that. So I thought a very good segment last night between those two. What say you?
I agree with you. I enjoyed this segment. I really enjoy at times the NXT faithful, those fans, right? It reminded me of old school like roast or Def Comedy Jam when they hit a line and how everyone's like, oh, and they hit the person next to them. It's an exciting atmosphere to be a part of when the show is rocking and when the show is really, really good. They really do bring at times the energy. And that was a real moment. I mean, we saw it with Roxanne Perez when CM Punk did show up and, he was rehabbing and he was down there and she told her story through social media. And then last night she told her story through that interview. Great to see her interrupt CM Punk. And that back and forth, again, she's blown me away with her promo stuff and just being a next level heel. Her heel character 100% should insult every single person. I mean, hell, Bully Ray insulted everybody when he was a heel. Sometimes even today, as he's a babyface, he insults everybody. But when it's your job to be a heel, lean into it, and she's leaned into it. She is going after CM Punk with that line was just so good because, I mean, you talk about here's a guy who's putting her over, and then yet she still goes out there and insults him. And the feud with Drew McIntyre is personal, and then she made it personal with Punk. What say you, Bully?
Well, Bully, you mentioned on social media last night that Roxanne hung on the mic. That's strong praise when you're standing in the ring with CM Punk.
I thought last night was a great spot for Roxanne and for Julia. And yes, I thought Roxanne did a great job on the microphone last night. And it's not about what she said. It's not about the one-liners. It's not about everybody going, oh. It's what I saw from her as a professional. She was unintimidated and she was comfortable. That speaks volumes. You're in the ring with CM Punk. It's very, very easy for you to get starstruck, deer in the headlights, caught up in the moment, and oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It happens to plenty of wrestlers. It didn't happen to Roxanne last night. She embraced the opportunity. I'm only going to use myself as an example right now to kind of back up what I was able to see. I remember being in the ring the first time with Hulk Hogan doing a promo segment, thinking to myself, am I going to be nervous about this because I'm standing next to Hulk Hogan, or am I going to go for his jugular because I'm standing in the ring with Hulk Hogan? I went for the jugular in that moment. Roxanne, unintimidated, not nervous, went for the jugular. Not because she just hit the line about I should have been a Drew McIntyre fan. It's not about the words. Go back and listen to the way she said it. That's going for the jugular. She sent that knife right into his heart, twisted it, pulled it out, and then put salt on the wound. That's what I loved about Roxanne last night. It was her delivery. It was her intent. Yeah, you might be my hero, but I'm going to take this opportunity to use you as a stepping stone. So when this show is over, everybody's talking about what Roxanne Perez said to CM Punk.
The one thing I noticed, and Tommy, Bully, you both preached this, because there's been segments on NXT where this didn't necessarily happen, where both of you have said, hey, they rushed this a little bit, or they should have gave this a little air and a little space. Roxanne did that last night. When she was talking to CM Punk, she didn't rush. She gave it a little air and a little space, giving it not only for time for the crowd to react, but for CM Punk to react as well. And you saw it in his facials. And I think that Drew McIntyre line, Bully, would be an example of it. I think it's easy to kind of rush through things, especially on NXT. We've seen it many, many times, but Bully, to your point, she was very well paced in that promo last night.
Act, react. The react is just as important because I want to see the look on Punk's face when she sends that line in. I want to see how it resonates with him. I want to see if he's going to say anything back. I want to see if he's just going to take it in and it's going to register on his face. So yes, a lot of talents get into this habit of, okay, I'm going to say this, and then you're going to say this, and then this is my reply, and then you come back over the top with that, and we don't get that time in between. How many times has somebody said something to you, Dave, where you can't say anything back immediately because you're too busy taking in what they just said, maybe even repeating in your own mind, I can't believe they just said that. Why would they just say that? And then you retort. So yes, that is the things, those are the little things that they're going to learn in NXT as a developmental, and plus that you learn in the WWE. If you watch some of the main eventers over the past 30 years, the pregnant pause in between the moves, or the pregnant pause in between the verbiage so the others can react, is everything. It's just as important as anything else. How about when somebody would say something to Steve Austin and then Austin would just get that look on his face or turn his head a little bit like a dog that just heard a whistle? You don't want to rush through things. You want to slow it down. And when you think you're going too slow, go a little bit slower. You want people to be able to see how you react. You want them to feel what you're feeling in the moment.
Just to piggyback off of what he said, why Roxanne deserves even more praise, because if you think about with Bully's example, TNA with Hulk Hogan, how many years were you wrestling by then? This would equate it to Bully and ECW talking to a Hulk Hogan. Because Roxanne has been on television for a while now, but again, with years doing this, but years on television, she had everything that you want when you're standing there commanding an audience, and she commanded the audience. Another thing, just where we're talking about cadence, I think there's two different reasons. One, we notice that in NXT, they're not reacting to the crowd because sometimes that crowd, even though it's smaller, they try to hijack the show a little bit, and then your segments are going to go longer, and you're also dealing with talents after you that may not be able to hit their times / change on the fly because it is a developmental. So I think that is key of why, Trick acknowledges the people. CM Punk has to acknowledge the people because he's been doing this so long, but I see other acts that do not, and I think that is one reason. And then another thing, like Bully said, pausing, it's cadence, right? Triple H on SmackDown, I literally would use that when he showed up, and forget about the respect factor that the fans have for him. And it's just because he's been doing this so long. I notice it, and I notice it across the board. I see it on indies. I see it in, I've seen it in TNA and AEW. AEW, they don't really start with the what chants, but WWE, when you give them that pause, it's the cadence. I went to the store. I bought the new Coke Oreos. I went home and I ate it. In between all those pauses, they're chanting what? As opposed to if you listen to Triple H, he took you on a verbal story and he continued to talk. And as he was talking, he said, I went to the store. I went and I purchased these Oreos, and then I went home and I ate it, and I ate the whole rack, and then I poured it with milk and I had some more with milk. You see, while I'm telling you this story, I'm never stopping. I'm continuing to get to my point while also taking in oxygen, but also never giving you the chance to say what or to react until I want you to react. And that was just an example of what I just did. But Triple H did that. And last night, when you're hanging on people's words, they are never going to interrupt you.
And I think that's more important than anything else. You're right about the cadence. That's 100% true. But also, if the crowd is invested in what you're saying, they're not going to give you the what chance. You're not giving them the opportunity to do it because they're invested in what you're saying. I'm interested in this because you both mentioned it, and Bully, you alluded to the time in TNA when you're standing in the ring with Hulk Hogan, and as Tommy said, hey, that's 15 years in to your career when you're standing across from Hulk Hogan. But still, you got to be a little bit starstruck because that's freaking Hulk Hogan. You grew up watching that, man. So was there a moment in time when you're standing across or standing next to Hulk Hogan that you're saying, holy shit, this is Hulk Hogan?
For me, that was more, if it did happen, it happened in the back. Like, wow, I'm about to go out there and have a promo segment with Hulk Hogan. Once I go into the ring, it's a completely different mindset. It's an absolute go for the jugular. And I remember I was out there in my sunglasses and he had his sunglasses on too. I took mine off and I dared him to take his sunglasses off and look me in the eye, and he wouldn't. That was me calling him out. That was me putting, my gun to his head and saying, I'm taking your soul today. By the time this segment is over, when these people go home, they're going to know that I ate your fucking lunch. I ate your guts in this promo segment. And that's really what goes through my head, because I have to use Hulk Hogan in that moment in time. And he knows this. I have to use him in that moment in time to become a bigger star. Roxanne Perez used CM Punk last night to become a bigger star.
Dude,
yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Tommy.
Talk about example. WWE ECW, right? Everyone wants to crap all over it, but there was a moment when Vince McMahon is your ECW world champion. 2 times. There's one where he's walking through the hall and he first sees the Sandman who's smoking. Dude, they told us this shot's happened, and Vince goes, react however you want, and I'm going to respond. And he's walking through the hall, and you're got to say, am I going to say these things to my boss? Is he going to react to me? In the sense of, if I say something I was like, I don't care. I'm going to get because I wanted to get something in. Sandman, everything that he did, smoking, lighting the drinking the beer, that was all live. And then there was another promo right before WrestleMania where we confronted him. And he goes, say whatever you want to say. There was no rehearsals. There was no nothing. We literally met him in the ring. And I just went at him. But I was also at I'm either going to get pushed or fired. Who cares? But I'm not going to back down from being me, and by being me is being Tommy Dreamer. And I had a moment to be that. Just like Roxanne Perez had a moment to be her, CM Punk will always be CM Punk, and he can guzzle anybody on the microphone. It is an intimidating thing to do, and the fact that she held her own, stood there, and it just elevated her even more. Because when you have that, and there's an intimidation factor, I'm talking to somebody who's been in this business, somebody I grew up, but then also somebody that can destroy me on the microphone. But yet, it worked out in everybody's favor.
It certainly did.
I'm such a huge fan of not knowing what anybody is going to say. If I owned my own wrestling company, I would never script promos for anybody. It would be all bullet points, much like it was in ECW. And look at how raw and real things were back when we did it then. Here's your issue. Go say whatever you would say the way you would say it. That's real emotion. That's real energy. That's real passion.
But that's what wrestling also always was. It was also when it was territorial, and you had to feed your family to talk the people in. And that's why it worked for as many years as it did.
I mean, imagine somebody tried to script Hard Times.
You couldn't do that. But and I'm sure in the WWE now, maybe even on the level of NXT guys, and shoot me down if I'm wrong, there's certain wrestlers you have to maybe hand feed them what they're going to say on the microphone. And maybe there's situations where you don't. Maybe for a Roxanne Perez, it's bullet points and you don't have to hand feed them.
Here's an interesting point about, you're saying hand feed. I think what you're meaning is write everything for them, script everything for them, right?
Yes.
How entertaining was Kurt Angle.
Extremely.
Needed to be scripted 100% of the time. How's that?
It's crazy to think about, but because most of the time you think of that, you think of it in a negative connotation, but that's one where it was a grand slam.
Needed to be produced, needed to be scripted. And think about all of the entertaining stuff that he did with Austin or Rocky or anything that he did in the Attitude Era that showed that other side of Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, I believe, is the perfect example, or one of the most perfect examples of don't take yourself too seriously, because there's probably another side of you that you don't even know about that if we tap into can be as entertaining as the legitimate side of you. Olympic gold medalist. It doesn't get any more legit than that, right? If I would have told you an Olympic gold medalist is going to make you laugh and be as entertaining in the back as he is wrestling in the ring, you probably wouldn't believe me, but he was.
And if you think about who he's going with, Steve Austin, 99% of his time was off the cuff.
So there you go.
Austin was off the cuff, not Angle.
Correct.
Yep.
So it's just like this yin and the yang and the magic. Even those segments with the little hat when Kurt wore, like the little cowboy hat. I watch him today, and I chuckle now. But if I watch it on social media, I still laugh because it's just the yin and the yang of those two. But yeah, man, Kurt, when you have, and then that's also goes to great writers, because you got to also think of the comedy aspect of that. So there you go.
Last little story, and this just popped into my head because this was so much fun. Dave, you've seen in TNA me and Scott Steiner in the back talking about freaks.
Yep.
The producer of this, the producer of the segment says, "What are you guys going to talk about?" And I said, "Roll camera." And he's like, "What?" I said, "Roll the camera." And that was one take of just pure stupidity, whatever came off the top of our head. And I love it. First of all, I love it so much because fans find it so entertaining. But like, I go back and I watch that 2.5-minute promo with me and Scott, and I find it entertaining and it makes me laugh. And that's why I'm proud of it.